Well, this is
3, 2, 1, go.
yeah, 3, 2, 1, go. This is cool. It's exciting for me. It's crazy. I think this is we're actually kicking off something we started talking about probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Lesson one:
we should
silence
silence your cell phones. That's like the first thing. So, but I'm stoked. I think this is awesome. It's something you and I talked about doing probably 4 or 5 months ago, and now it's happening. And so I think we'll get into what our podcast is going to be about. But I think first of all, a good idea is just to introduce ourselves and talk about who we are and what we're going to be doing. So, hey, Aaron, what's your story?
What's my? Oh, dude, that's a long story. Shorter answer ish. My name's Aaron. Pretty much the only big things I've done is I was in the military for 6 years. I was in the Navy, did a thing called EOD, and yeah, I finished that up. Been out for about 1.5 years now, and I've kind of just been figuring things out since.
Cool.
Yeah.
What was your experience like in the Navy? You enjoy it, or?
Yeah, it was like anything, love-hate relationship.
Okay.
I always tell people that I loved it and I hated it. I just hated it a little bit more than I loved it, so I got out.
Right. Where did you grow up?
Grew up
Where are you from?
Clovis.
Clovis?
Clovis. I'm Clovis, born and raised. Went to Clovis High.
Go Cougs.
Yeah, once Cougar, always Cougar. Then, 18. Right when I graduated, I moved to Reading. Lived in Reading for 1 year.
I didn't know you lived in Reading.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to Bethel and lived with. I actually lived with Jason Valatin for a year. I don't know if you know him or not, but yeah. And then with one of my best friends who's in Sacramento now, Taylor, and then we had some other roommates, but that was an awesome time. And then within that year is when I had what we call depped into the military, which is where you swear in and you're signed up, and then you're waiting for your boot camp date.
Very cool.
So yeah, it was actually almost exactly a year when I shipped off to boot camp, and then I was gone for the next 6 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you find yourself doing now most of the time? You have any hobbies?
Oh, CrossFitter.
CrossFitter.
Through, dude. Killing it. Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I think it's the reason I'm there so much is because it's one of many things, but one of them is kind of that the place you can go that builds you up, and you feel productive at the end of the day. You feel good, but you're also building a lot of relationships. I actually have tons of friends from there now, all really good people. Everybody's from different places, doing different things, but it's still I don't know. It's a cool community. It's fun to hang out, and we do a lot more than CrossFit now. Spike ball and ping pong.
So I talk a lot of trash on CrossFit because my brother's a big CrossFitter, and I got to give him crap for it. But I actually love CrossFit. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What do you love most about CrossFit? Is it the community or the fitness?
It's a mixture of both.
Yeah.
It's like a mixture of challenging yourself, because there's things that are just really hard and you don't want to do them.
Yeah.
And then there's also the goals. You have your goals of reaching new levels of strength. And then the community, I'd say it's 50-50, because the other part is you wouldn't want to do it if you're not with people, typically. Some people like to work out alone, but it's so much better when you're with people all the time. And there's times when I like to work out alone.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just throw headphones in and I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to do something,
right.
Move. But yeah.
But it seems like there is something to having someone there to push you. And you played sports in high school, right?
Yeah.
So the competitive aspect has got to be there.
Yeah, which is weird though, because I always did individual type sports, I did pole vaulting. But now I'm way more into team stuff. I would rather be on a team. But right now I'm focusing more on getting stronger, faster.
Have you ever thought about competing?
Sport. I've competed once. Yeah, is it once? I think just once. No, twice. One was just an in-house competition though, but it was fun. It was teams. One was a male-female, and then another one was male-male. And I don't know. I think at the time I was still working on my back issue.
Okay.
Which I'm not going to get into all that, but So I wasn't having as much fun because I was still too cautious of like
Right.
hurting myself.
That's
So I
probably
was like a little bit
healthy.
nervous. Yeah. So I haven't really been wanting to compete since those. Not yet. I'm actually just more into. Right now I'm getting stronger and better and everything. So it's like it's been a good season.
That's
for
awesome.
That. Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know Aaron, I worked out with him. He's actually a machine. He's being really modest right now, but
Yeah.
Aaron's pretty. Aaron's a beast when he's working out. So he's being modest though.
Yeah. Depends on who I'm around. Some people think I'm a beast, and other people are like, "This guy's terrible."
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
What about you?
Well, my name's Brian. Grew up in Fresno. Spent my whole life in Fresno. Was kind of, as far as my education, was kind of a little bit of a journey. I went to Bullard High. I especially split my time in high school between a Christian school and Bullard High. Went to college, did the college thing.
Did you go to Fresno Christian?
Not Fresno Christian.
No, okay.
I went to Clovis Christian.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to Albert Rodriguez. I know you guys have a podcast too. Go Cougars. They were actually Wildcats. They were the Clovis Christian Wildcats.
Okay.
But then I went to Bullard High and finished my time.
Cougar Wildcat.
It's the same thing. Finished my time at Bullard High as a Knight, and then went to college. College was, I guess, interesting for me. I was always kind of bookish. I was kind of a nerd, but really enjoyed college. Thought during college that I was going to be an academic. I was that guy, like long hair, flip-flops, studied philosophy. Really enjoyed it. Then kind of finished college and realized that being an academic really wasn't for me. Worked odd jobs and eventually got into law enforcement, and that's what I do now. So I'm a cop. Really enjoy that. Part of my job is an investigator, and I really enjoy that. What I enjoy most about my job is obviously arresting bad guys, but also putting together puzzles. Investigations is what really fascinates me. I really enjoy doing that. I've done that for a little bit now, and really enjoy my job. So,
yeah. From what I hear, you have it seems like a pretty cool job.
it's got its perks.
Yeah.
That's
That's how it was for the military too. You probably actually have similar feelings, I would assume. Kind of love hate.
I mean, there's times I'd say I'm on more of the love than hate it right now.
Yeah. Which is good. That's where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, law enforcement is obviously really politicized right now.
Yeah.
So there's the political side of law enforcement that you don't enjoy dealing with.
Yeah. That's exactly how it was for.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of those problems you can avoid by, in my opinion, just being professional.
Yeah.
And I think you constantly got to ensure that you're being professional and conducting yourself in a manner that's, I guess, above reproach. I'm not trying to be cliche, but and the camaraderie. I'm sure that you felt the same about the military. The camaraderie is really big in law enforcement, and that's one of the things I enjoy most about it.
Yeah. The things I loved were the realistic training that we had, not like the grading. I hated when they would test you, and that was
Right.
always just so annoying. But the actual just to learn, they would have some really cool realistic training exercises that we do, and it was just like man camp, because you go out, you're in the middle of the high desert,
Yeah.
you're just like going around with all guns, explosives, jervs, which are really really big.
Oh, DERS, you're gonna have to break down the acronyms.
I don't even I don't even remember what JRV stands for. Joint Rapid Response Vehicle, actually, JRRV. But they're pretty much really big Humvees. For
Okay.
EOD, it's basically these huge diesel trucks, but they're really really thick, because we drive over explosives
Right.
when we're on accident. Obviously, we never do it on purpose, but and it was kind of like a little. It's just a tank. Those things are awesome.
When you were in, did you spend all your time stateside, or did you go to
2 deployments altogether, 2 6-month deployments to Guam, and then from Guam we would fly. We basically we'd join up with another mobile unit there, and we'd fly out from there all over the Pacific.
Awesome.
Yeah, we went to a lot of different places. Most of it was just foreign relations.
Okay.
Most of it was just like training them a little bit. They'd tell us what they know, and we already typically knew it. And then we most of the time we'd go eat and drink with them. Like that's
Okay.
how you build relationships with most other countries. They just want to like hang out.
I think it's how
And the
guys
whole-
build relationship in general.
Oh yeah, that's why it worked.
Eating
Yeah,
and
that's why I
drinking.
like. And we'd go back every once in a while, like, you know, the next year or whatever, if you got on a deployment where you just happened to be going to the same place, and
Mhm.
you'd remember the people, and it was cool because you'd have connections and be like, oh yeah, we had so much fun this last time. And you're like, yeah, that was great. And we'd normally,
That's
depending
cool.
on the country, like if you're somewhere, you know, it's not as like most of them are very poor.
Yeah.
You know, especially like certain places were just like dirt poor, so we would just go and pay, and it would still be really cheap, but we'd pay for everything, and even out of our own pocket, just to like we'd give them money, and then they'd give it to
Mhm.
their wives, and their wives would go and like make like an awesome meal
That's cool.
and bring it out, and then we'd have like videoke and stuff like that, which is like karaoke.
Oh, so it's
arcade.
videoke. Okay.
Basically, it looks like an arcade game
Did you
without
go-
any controls. It just has a TV, and then you can choose your.
Did you have a
song.
go-to song in videoke? Did
Oof.
you have like a go-to?
Just depended on.
Yeah.
I could.
What was some of your top? What are some of your standards?
I don't know.
You remember?
It always. I can never remember the songs that I like on the spot. I have to like start hearing all of them, and then all of a sudden remember one and be like, oh, I'm gonna sing this one. But I also typically need to be drinking because karaoke's not my.
Not your thing?
Not if I am not like I don't know. Just depends.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, it was a really good time.
That's awesome, man.
Most of the places we went were awesome.
Now you said something to me the other day that I thought was hilarious. So you spent most of your time in San Diego, right? Is that where you
about
stationed
4
most of the
years,
time?
4 of the 6 years.
And you said San Diego is probably my favorite city in California. I lived in California my whole life, and we're from the Central Valley, which is like the forgotten stepchild of
The
of
armpit.
California. So I mean, you're in the Central Valley, which is cool because you know you're close to everything. You know, you're close to the Bay, you're decently close to LA, you're close to the mountains. So I've spent a lot of time in Frisco, spent some time in LA. And those, you know, I'm not going to badmouth any one city, but for me, like the best city in California is probably San Diego. Like the weather's amazing. It's a nice, well-run, clean city. But you said something that blew my mind, and I have to understand this. You said it is like almost too nice.
It is too nice there.
Help me wrap my mind around that.
Well, half of it though, I will say I don't necessarily like it to live there because there's just so big and so many people.
Mm.
And I actually growing up in like Clovis,
Smaller
you kind of
town.
I like knowing people where I go, and
Right.
you know you get to know. San Diego, you like almost can't unless you frequent like the same exact spots because
Right.
you could go to a different place to eat like every single time for the rest of your life there. Because
Yeah.
by the time you get through a lot of them, there's like so many other restaurants open, or you know whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, I would say the weather and everything is like you growing up here too. We had like you have pretty good seasons here. Like I like drastic changes. So
We have
I
that.
like having cold and I
Yeah.
like having hot. You know, cold winters, hot summers, and then everything in between.
Right. We go from summer to winter
Yeah,
here,
pretty
basically.
much.
Although this year's been different, pleasantly different. Like
Yeah.
we basically had a
I mean, it's
fall,
been-
we had a winter,
It's
super
been
wet
so
winter.
nice.
So is it the weather in San Diego? Is it rough?
So
is it rough
it's-
being like just 75 degrees, sunny all the time?
Yeah, that's what I didn't like. It's like you get sick of that.
Really?
I mean, it happens every day, and you're like, all right. I mean, it's
Okay.
nice it's nice. It's super nice to like. That's why it's nice to vacation there. That's like I like to vacation.
Your
there.
go-to spot?
I wouldn't necessarily want to live there again. It's not the worst place to live, obviously. It's great, but you do like I would always miss like I like the cold, and then I like hot. Like I like
that.
having a mixture of. It's just nice to have changes.
I guess that would be the one thing about living in San Diego, because to drive someplace where you get some like decent, like if you're into winter sports or something like that, you
Mhm.
got to go a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you can always drive somewhere from there,
Right.
and it's always pretty close to get whatever you want. But I think that's why it's so nice.
So I'm kind of a foodie. That's kind of like my thing. I like food
Yep.
a lot. So if I'm in San Diego, what's your like go-to hole-in-the-wall joint that I've got to go to?
Hole in the wall, dude. They have everything there. That's another reason it's so nice.
Right.
Like you could eat. Like I've had Russian food there, which is
Really?
really like most people don't.
You enjoy Russian food?
Yeah, dude. No, it was good. Trust me, if you went, you'd like
Okay.
it. I'm almost guarantee it. It wasn't like there was like beef stroganoff, which is
Yeah.
like the typical thing. Like that's
Right.
like the only thing anybody. But there's like other stuff that you've never even. It's the most creative food I've ever seen,
And you dug
and
it.
it was all really good.
Wow.
But I also like just about everything.
Okay.
I'm kind of a foodophile.
So my in-laws are Ukrainians, so, and I love you, Peter and Nelia. When I got introduced to Russian food, it was different. And
There
there
was
was
Thanksgiving.
yeah, there's some Russian food I do really enjoy. There's others that I'm warming up to. So it's
Yeah.
fascinating to me that you
I
really enjoyed
just
Russian food.
all I know is everything I've had there was really good.
That's awesome.
But then I've had like Ethiopian food.
I've
They
had,
obviously
I've
have
had
really-
Ethiopian food.
Ethiopian.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. They also have really, really like the best Mexican food because it's right
Yeah.
near Mexico. So you can get any type of taco or burrito. And there's like a million holes in the wall
Yeah.
that you could go to.
All right.
Um,
What was the name of the Russian place? Do you remember the name of it?
I don't. It was a weird name.
Like a Russian name?
It was like a mixture. It had like a. I could look it up. I'm
Okay.
sure later, but there was like actually several of them.
Really?
But I've only went to one, and it was really good.
I didn't think there was that big
And it
a
was,
Russian
dude, it
community
was
down there.
Russian, like hardcore.
Yeah?
Like they even had thick accents. Like they were.
That's legit.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good time. And then yeah, see, there's every type of food you can think of, because everybody's there. Like there's so many different types of people there. Like it's the most diverse city I've ever been to.
That's
Like,
cool. Well, and coming
which
from
is
Fresno,
so
that's saying
cool.
something.
Yeah.
Because Fresno's
For real.
pretty diverse.
Because I mean, you have tons, like there's college there and everything that a lot of people will go to. So you have
Right.
people from all over the place.
Because how many
Plus,
colleges
it's
do you have
just
down there?
attracts people in general.
Because you got what? You got UC San Diego.
There's a lot.
There's a lot
I
of
don't even
of
know.
colleges. Yeah, there's a lot of college. It's a big college town.
There's like all sorts. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, you have, and then within each I don't know. There's so many different subcategories of each one. 'Cause then
Right.
you have like the OB is like where all the hippies are. PB is like
Wait, what's
all
OB?
the- OB is Ocean Beach.
Okay.
And then PB is Pacific Beach. They have all the. That's like the party, almost like the college. I feel
Okay.
like maybe ish. That's like bar crawl all day long.
All
Like you
right.
can go bar to bar to bar if you wanted to. There, it's dangerous. And then you have, you have downtown.
Mm.
Then you have the
Gas
just next to
Lamp.
the stadium.
Yeah.
Gas Lamp is like another bar crawl, but like kind of a different.
Well, in San Diego's
Feel-
got.
it's
It
really
seems like such a clean downtown. There's not too many downtowns
Yeah.
in California.
I didn't spend a lot.
that's,
I don't
super
like
clean.
big cities. I don't
Okay.
like a lot of big buildings around me. I don't know why. I don't like it.
Open spaces.
I like open spaces. I grew up in the country, so it's like we're in the foothills and stuff too. So it's like I like open.
And I think that's one of the craziest things about the Central Valley and Fresno is, I mean, even on paper, I'm sure it's even more in the county and just in reality of who's living here. But there's like 500,000 people in Fresno.
Is that what?
Yeah,
Well,
we're-
I've heard it's growing quick though.
yeah, we're like over 500,000, and this is still like the biggest small town
Yeah.
like in the country.
Yeah.
Like I've lived in Fresno my whole life, and if I met someone on the street right now, I guarantee you there's maybe 2 degrees of separation between them and someone I know.
Yeah.
I find that consistently, and it's
Yeah.
crazy to me whenever I go to a bigger city, even a city like San Jose. Frisco's got a little over 1 million people, so it's not drastically bigger than Fresno,
Yeah.
but it's still like we live in such a big small town.
Yeah. Everybody knows everybody, which is kind of that I like it that way, but I also there are certain things that I don't like about that. It's like
Yeah,
sometimes it's nice. That's why I like to go places like San Diego on vacation
Mhm.
because you can go where nobody knows you and you don't. It's like kind of nice to get away.
yeah,
But
I can appreciate
I
that.
mean, it's all. I think it just depends on how much time you spend in each
Mhm.
situation. You always get sick of what you have.
It's true. No, it's totally true, man.
Like I was getting sick of 75 and sunny.
Yep.
It's like who would get sick of that? It's perfect. You're like,
But I think that's
It gets
crazy. I wonder about that. How like we were. I think I read something one time. A writer said that what's great about the calendar year is that everything's the same and yet everything's different. You've got seasons. Each season's the same, but you've got 4 seasons. And I think we're kind of built for that kind of diversity
yeah,
and harmony with the consistency of the year. So
yeah,
but it's true, man. I mean, it's hilarious to me. Like whenever I've traveled someplace, because I've been fortunate enough to travel to the Caribbean, to Europe, and people ask about how they're dreaming to come to even, like the Sierras, which are beautiful, but we take them for granted because, they're always there, and we've been able to go there forever.
And Yosemite.
Yeah. How about that?
I always forget about that. People come in here like, oh, we're going to Yosemite. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yosemite's friggin' awesome.
It's
but
amazing.
You just forget.
And it's in our backyard.
Right there.
Yeah. I grew up near, Oakhurst. Yosemite is probably an hour from where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
So we could go there anytime. People come from all over the world, and we're like, oh, yeah, you're going to go to Half Dome?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's amazing. It's one of the benefits of living in the valley, but like you said, you just take it for granted sometimes.
Forget. That's why it's Fresno and Clovis, it grows on me over time, because it's like, I think the hardest thing for me is growing up, like, all my family's here. Yeah. And I love all my family, but there's just a lot of drama. You just have a lot going on. And so sometimes it's nice to, I'm really, really glad that I lived away from it for so long, just so I can come back into it with a better, like like it's different. It's weird. Like I can come back and it's easier for me to manage and to like work things out with people and, whatever's going down, because you have like an outside perspective where you've gone and done your own thing. You've become your own person.
I can appreciate that.
That's always been, I've noticed that's been like, I encourage anybody like that's about to like get out of high school and I was like, dude, go and do something, like get away from here,
get away, travel a little bit,
even if it's just for like a year. You can learn so much in a year on your own. It's crazy.
Well, I think it is important to expose yourself to different cultures and perspectives, and it's good for us as people to get outside our bubble, because you can grow up in a community and never realize the diversity of opinion and culture that's out there, and I think that's healthy. But I'll tell you this: as much as I've traveled, and this is the weirdest thing, because I grew up, I'm sure you had the same experience. Growing up in the Central Valley, you got people that either love it here, and this is home, and you got the people that say, I can't wait to get out of here. Like as soon as I'm sure you went to high school with people just like this. As soon as I graduate, I'm gone. Yeah, I'm gonna go, wherever they're gonna go. And I had people like that. I have family like that. But for whatever reason, as much as I've traveled, I will still get homesick. Like I will still miss Fresno, California. Yeah. And people in California make fun of Fresno all the time. It's the armpit. And once you travel to a big city like San Diego, San Francisco, even cities outside, California, to big cities in Texas or the East Coast, you do gain an appreciation for how small Fresno is in comparison. Yeah. But I still miss it. I will still get homesick.
Yeah, I think I miss it though because I have family here. Yeah. Like if I didn't have any family and like the good friends that I have here, then I would, it would be like anywhere else. Totally. More than likely. But yeah, I think it's because there is a good community here of people. Like, I don't know, I've met so many good people here. They're just they're just good-hearted, like nice people, like you just want to get to know, because they don't have any
no agenda,
no expectations of you. It's just like, let's hang out, let's be friends. Just cool in most cases.
And I think that's huge, and I think that's a good segue into to why we're here and what we're doing. I think community is huge, and I think people, we were built for community, and I think that's big. And we talked about this, and we talked about wanting to do this podcast, and community is the point, and specifically men in community. And I think as we were talking, it's so important. Men gravitate toward community anyway. It's kind of natural for men. But the community that we surround ourselves with is very important, and we basically want to be a podcast that caters to men. And there's a saying, and you're gonna have to check me on this. I kind of wax philosophical because that's my background, and if I won't catch myself, but I'll start going there.
With Google, it's all right.
Yeah, but. It was said that the whole purpose of having a community of men was to carry on what's called the eternal conversation. And that's just talking about things that men have been talking about for centuries. Why are we here? What are we doing? What makes men good? What can men do to be better? And I think the point of our podcast is we're just a couple of guys that are trying our best to be better. Yeah. We'll approach it from a Christian perspective, because I believe anyway, that we have a model in the person of Jesus that presents us with the ideal man to kind of aim at, is the standard to aim at. But I'm certainly not opposed to having other perspectives on, and just having that eternal conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I think is opening conversations.
yeah, I think so.
Because if you don't talk about it, then you're never gonna figure it out, really. You know,
Absolutely.
most of the time.
Yeah.
Or it just turns into like, oh, I hate that person because they don't. But then if you had talked about it, maybe you'd actually like figure things out. Like, oh,
and
okay,
I think
we are saying the same thing, or you know.
Right. Well, that's what frustrates me about the age of social media. Like, it is so easy to get on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and just hate someone.
Because you can be anonymous.
Yeah, without ever having a conversation with them.
If you took any of those people and put their picture to it, you know,
put
their name and their picture to whatever they said, they probably wouldn't post it, you know. But,
totally.
But it's so easy to be that.
Or if they had to say that to that person's face and have a conversation with them. So, I mean, I'm totally with you there. I think that's what I want to steer away from, rather.
Yeah.
Is just that kind of just line in the sand. There's certain things that, you know, I think for both of us are non-negotiable. But I also want to have conversations with guys. And I think what's easy for men to do, especially in the church and as Christians, is we will isolate ourselves from community, especially when stuff gets uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
I think you and I talked about this. Our goal for this podcast is to, through a podcast, be able to have men in community so they don't isolate themselves. Because I found this to be true in my life. Guys die when they're isolated.
Oh, yeah.
If guys don't have community, they will isolate themselves, and that's where stuff goes terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on that?
My take, I agree completely. I've always heard it for like you have 3 levels. You should have somebody that's pouring into you, somebody you're pouring into, and then somebody that's on your level, you know, like somebody that's a peer.
Right.
And I think that's super smart. And that's like bare minimum would be one of each of those. You know, like you would want to have lots of people, more so probably pouring into you, you know, because if you can't get all your stuff from like, I don't know. I feel like you shouldn't get all of what you need from one person or one source.
Sure.
I think that's what we're built to be in community. We're built to be in relationship. And those relationships are ugly and dirty and painful, but like with intentionality and with the correct focus and the correct drive and the direction, you can, I mean, it's pretty amazing, like the relationships you can build and the freedom you can find, the healing you can find, and the, you know, I don't know. I've seen some pretty cool stuff happen with just, you know, pushing through it, pushing through the pain, sitting in the pain.
So
not numbing out on something, you know, but getting there and seeing what you're going through, staring it in the face.
Well, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, and I think you had experiences like this when you were living up in Redding, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about
that? So I lived in Redding. I started going to BSSM, which is Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. Went there for a little while. My intention and my whole plan when I was really, really smart, when I was 18, right out of high school.
We were all really smart at 18.
Yeah, I knew everything.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
So I went there with this, like, I was like, I want to know that God's real, and I'm going to go here because they're doing these supernatural things. I'm going to see God healing people. I'm going to see, like, all this crazy stuff. And then I'm going to know. Now I know that God's real, and I don't have to, like...
Right.
But then, I got there, and turns out they're really, really good at what they do there, and they started bringing up all of everybody's issues, you know, like bringing up all this stuff that I had bottled up, even in the short 18 years of my life, like pushed away and didn't want to look at, numbed out on, you know, like anytime it came up, I would just hide it, push it down, push it under the rug. So at that age, I couldn't take it, and I just ran.
Right.
That was me. Joining the Navy was actually me running.
Really?
That was I had always wanted to go to the military, but at that time, the thing that really pushed me over into signing up and doing it was that I was like, I wanted to get away from all this stuff. Like, this whole God stuff and anything, this pain that I was feeling, these, like, all these issues that I have in my life that I didn't want to ever deal with. It's like, that's too painful. I'm just going to go live an adventurous life and shoot some guns and blow things up. That'll be
that's an easy escape, man. Heck yeah.
So I ended up living there for a year, but I never finished BSSM. I bolted. Joined the military while I was in boot camp. Actually was like I actually made the decision. I was like, I'm no longer going to be a Christian. Like an actual, I remember laying there being like, I'm going to live however I want to live. Like, I'm just going to be like, whatever I feel like doing, I'm going to do it. And so luckily I actually came out fairly unscathed, as far as a lot of things that could have happened, but, ended up getting to a point later on, probably a year or two later, where I just woke up one morning and was like, I just started bawling in my bed, just thinking, this is not me. Like, I can't, this isn't sustainable. This isn't healthy. Yeah. And at that time I didn't really know what was, but I knew what wasn't. So I finally
knew this
like,
wasn't
okay,
working.
Yeah, this isn't going to work for me. I'm done. I remember I had a roommate too, who's right next to me, and he's like, I'm like hiding my, like, oh, don't see me cry.
Yeah, what's going on over there?
This is the military. You're not supposed to have emotions. At least that's the traditional idea. But
right.
So I like got up and took a shower, because you can cry in the shower, and then somebody saw you, and
we've all cried in the shower.
It's just water, man.
Yeah.
But that was when I was kind of like, all right, I don't know what it's gonna look like, but I know what I'm gonna not do anymore. And so it's kind of where it starts shifting back into me really becoming what I actually believed, and not just listening to people that and just like believing it. Now I'm in a place where I'm like, no, I'm gonna challenge it, because I need to know for me. Like, there's no easy button. You can't just like press the I believe button anymore, because that's not gonna work over time.
No, and
it has to be something you truly go through, and it's typically gonna be between you and like you and either that person, or you and God, or it has to be that, it can't be you just hearing somebody talk about it.
No, it completely resonates with me, man.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious that you brought that up, that, when I was 18 I knew everything.
Yep.
Because, I realize I'm old enough now where I realize this is just the way the world is. Like, every generation is going to be like this.
Always.
Yeah, every kid is going to come through high school, and eventually, you get a diploma and you know everything.
Yep.
And I think back about myself at that age, and just what a prick I was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I still am. And I need Jesus every day to correct that in me. But I remember I was thinking about this the other day, and just I think I was a freshman in college. I might have been a sophomore.
Yeah.
But just the way I talked to my professors or papers that I was so smart.
Oh yeah.
And I just realized, if I could go back and just slap myself, I so would, man. And I had a similar experience in college. So obviously I studied philosophy, and philosophy is just about like radical skepticism. So we're going to question whether we even exist, right? I think therefore I am, and all that nonsense. But it's not nonsense. I think skepticism can be healthy. But I reached a point where I was like, I had my own crisis where I was like, well, what do I know? What's real? And I think that I came to a similar place where you did. I wasn't crying though. I'm just kidding. I totally was.
I haven't cried since.
I haven't cried since. No, I was just bawling in my bed, and I was like, Lord, I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah.
And I came to the point that was it for living in an intellectual world for 4 or 5 years. The conclusion that I came to is completely unintellectual, and there's a bunch of proofs for the existence of God. But like you said, at the end of the day, that none of that matters as much as your experience with Almighty God.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I came to, that I knew that I knew because of for me, and again, this is just from the Christian perspective, I knew that I knew because of the witness of the Holy Spirit in my heart. I knew that God was real because I'd experienced God.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else
it has to be your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain that. And the truth is that there's no even philosophical argument that can touch that.
Yeah.
Because no one can touch your experience. So I think that's huge. And going back to being intentional, I think that another thing that makes Jesus so appealing to me is that when I read the Gospels, Jesus is like the most intentional guy that ever lived. And Jesus fit that model exactly. Jesus had a direct relationship with the Father, where the Father was speaking into him. And then Jesus, I don't think there's ever been a more intentional guy in terms of discipleship. That guy was discipling, or Almighty God was discipling all the time. And I think that's a great model for us. I try to get perspective from older men all the time. I try to have relationships with guys at a pure level, and then when I can, I'll seek out guys that either ask for help or need help. Because I mean, I feel like it's just selfish just to get and not give. You know what I mean? In terms of inputting, mentoring, things like that.
I think it's like seasonal, but yeah, I agree. Because I know some people that want to give way too much, and you're like, dude, you're not.
You don't have anything to
you
give.
You shouldn't be giving that away. That's not good. But yeah, I think for sure you get to a place where you're like, once you take in enough from other people that are older and wiser, and
yes,
then you like, okay, now I have a voice. I have something to say. I have
Isn't it
my own experiences that I can speak from.
Yeah,
that's actually something I really tried. It's hard for me not to because I love to listen to other speakers.
Right.
And I want to regurgitate what they're saying, but it's not my experience. So like, it's really like it kind of like almost like bad juju to like.
It can come across
be a really
fake.
bad thing for you to not even necessarily fake, but it's like if I'm telling you something that I never really experienced, like. I don't know. Over time, it just becomes watered down.
Yeah, there's a
and
value in that.
disingenuine almost, if that makes sense. So, I try almost like a common practice. Like I only want to. My goal is to only speak from my own experiences.
Yeah.
Things that I've gone through. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've actually been in it, and I've gone through that pain and sat through that, or learned from it, and.
Well, that's what preaches to people.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've experienced it, I mean, that's what sells to people, I think.
And I don't want to live on other people's coattails. Like have my own story, my own lessons, things that I can tell people that I know from.
I think there's total value in that, man. I mean, it with all the tools, and we have a bunch of tools in the church, but what it came down to, I mean, how does the Bible say they overcame the enemy with the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony? Mm-hmm. There's power in your own testimony, like for sure. Like your experience in the military and going from Bethel to the military, I guarantee you that's gonna impact someone. Yeah, that's gonna speak to someone right where they are. Mm-hmm. It's always hilarious to me, and I like how you said, talking to older, wiser men and getting their perspective. Yeah, it never ceases to be hilarious to me. Guys like my age or younger, that are like they're at this, huge, impasse in life or this huge decision point, and they go and talk to guys like their same age. Yeah.
They're like probably drinking a beer. And like, you know what you need to do, man?
Yeah, like what are you?
This is what you need to do.
What are you doing, dude? Like this guy doesn't know any more than you do. Like why would you go to that guy? Like if you got, especially like it's always funny to me, and I'm gonna try to be nice about this, but guys that have like girl issues, like man, I'm struggling. This girl, I don't know what to do.
Oh, girl issues.
Yeah,
I swear I thought you said gorilla shoes, and I'm like, what?
No, that's
gorilla shoes. Got it.
Gorilla shoes.
Continue.
They're dealing with issues with women or something like that, and they'll go and get a perspective from a single dude, is in the same boat they are, instead of going like an older, wiser man who's probably I don't know is married, like has a woman,
maybe he's been married for a while,
maybe get that perspective. But I think that's my goal for this forum or this podcast is to, I'm not saying that we know anything more than anyone listening. But I would like to bring perspective to guys out there that need it, and invite them into a community where we have resources for them. Yeah. If we don't have them, because I guarantee you we're not going to have a ton of answers. But I think we can point people.
This is all a conversation. It's not. Yeah. I wouldn't want anybody to think I know any more than anybody else. I just like to talk about it and figure it out.
Absolutely, yeah. I've come to the conclusion that I know less each year than I did the year before.
Well, that means you're getting wiser.
I don't know, man, but like I don't know. Like I think about how dumb I was when I was younger, and
the wiser you get, the more you realize
how
little you know.
But there's some days where like I don't really know. Yeah. I don't know much about anything. But I think what I wanted to kind of ask you, Aaron, in like the back half of our time today is, so obviously these are hot button issues in 2019. Like, what is the role of men in society? Do traditional gender roles still apply? Or is the traditional role of a man relevant in 2019? So we're talking old school traditional role of a.
It depends on what old school you mean, because I think there are generations of fathers and men that were very good at certain things, but very, very bad at other things. And a lot of it is
Okay.
in the sense of, especially if you have a generation that just came out of was either in a war or kind of
Right.
came out of a war.
Right.
Is typically you're going to have these closed, shut off, hard men,
Right.
and they're really, really good at working, and they're really, really good at
Right.
dedicating their time to things, and they have but most of them had a lot of issues on the vulnerability or on the being open or talking about they were taught in that generation to be closed off and to be, but if you look at even older school, even getting all the way back to the biblical times, you'll see some pretty good, especially in the Bible, you'll see some pretty good examples of men that were real men. In my opinion, the most manly men are the ones that know how to, they know when to cry and they know when to fight.
Mm-hmm.
They know when to be the today's idea of tough man, but then they also know when they need to open up and when they need to be vulnerable and let people know what they're going through and show people pain, and show people what they're going through and work through that. Because if you don't do that, then you're just always going to close it up, and then you're going to become.
No, I think that's.
What was this?
I think it's totally good.
You said something velvet.
Yes.
What it was.
So there was an old saying, I think it was in the Renaissance period, right after the Middle Ages. They were talking about the ideal gentleman, and it was said the ideal gentleman was a combination of velvet and steel.
Yeah.
And so that he could be soft at times, he could be steely at times.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say hard because.
Oh, you could do that too.
Guys were supposed to be velvety and they were supposed to be steely, and there was supposed to be a balance there. And that's why I kind of asked you that question, because it's so frustrating to me. It's just, again, a lot of our perspective, unfortunately, about masculinity and manhood is clouded or shaped by social media and just the media at large.
Oh, we have an identity crisis.
And that's kind of what I wanted to hit on. Is, we got, I'm sick of heteronormative roles or all this other stuff that gets clouded as to what men are supposed to be. And I think you hit it on the head. What's the ideal man? Are traditional roles of manhood good? Yeah. And your answer was it depends on what era we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's totally true.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, coming out of areas or seasons of, deep conflict where guys are coming back from war, these were guys that had such a huge wealth of stuff to pass on to their sons, to pass on to the next generation, but because of their brokenness or their woundedness, they're just so closed off that they couldn't give anything.
Yeah.
And that's not here nor there. I'm not faulting any of those men, and I'm not saying they were all like that, but I think you did see that in that generation where you couldn't be vulnerable. And it wasn't because there wasn't a value for that. I think it was because of brokenness.
Yeah.
And I think that's what men struggle with, man. I do. I think that men are always going to struggle between those two poles is, when am I supposed to be steely? When am I supposed to be, tender, for lack of a better word? And I think it's finding that balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, for myself, I think I find that in the person and work of Jesus. I don't think there's ever been a man that exemplified those things in perfect balance and harmony, and that's the kind of man I aspire to be. But yeah, I think we are at an identity crisis.
Yeah.
I think my biggest frustration is, and I kind of want to pick a brain about this, I don't feel like men have permission to be men in 2019, and it bugs me.
Yeah. I think that. Yeah, I think it's a mixture of that, but also they don't. It really comes back to the fact that most men are just boys in men's clothing, and they don't actually know how to be. And it's not that they choose not to be; it's just there's no example, And I'm not saying I have all of my issues, I have all my things that I deal with constantly. Of I'm figuring that out too,
right.
And It used. I mean, I think the way it should be is you have a father figure in your life,
right,
or multiple, different men that you can go to and be, ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, I mean, it really comes down to there's the internet, and sadly, most people are just Googling for answers, or watching other people, and they're getting. I mean, we worship and idolize these celebrities, and then you look at their lives, and you're like, why do we want to?
Yeah.
People want that, and I'm like, why would you want to be I mean, if you look at, even every time I get groceries, like I glance over at the magazines, and it's like,
the
who
tabloid
broke
rack.
up with who this
Yep.
time, or it's like, and these are things that people will buy and read, and and like, that's the problem. We don't have anybody,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, I think it's a mixture of, we don't have permission, but we also just don't. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Nobody has an idea, and it's there's a lot to it. And I think the biggest way, one of the most effective ways of getting there, or at least getting in the right direction, is opening that conversation, just talking about it.
Yeah.
There's no right, there's no wrong necessarily. It's like I should say, there's no right or wrong questions.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's like, it's just a conversation. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna just freaking judge everybody and here, this is what you're doing wrong. It's like, no, let's just talk about it and figure it out.
No, and I think the big thing you kind of hit on is everyone's Googling an answer without knowing what the standard is.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we have a unique perspective to offer. And I'm going to say something, I guess, I don't know if it's controversial, but in my reading of just history, this seems to be true to me. And that's that when men don't have a focus in terms of who they are and where they're going, society does not do well. When men do have that focus, we tend to do better. And
Yeah.
I think this is just even more so in the church. When men aren't leading, the church suffers. When men are leading, the church does really well. And my passion for this podcast is to equip men to go out and lead in their communities, lead in their businesses, lead in their places of employment, and most importantly, lead in their families. Because at the end of the day, and I'm sure you agree with this, Aaron, you are not going to be judged any more severely than how you led your family. And my goal is to, when I someday go before Almighty God, I'm going to be accountable for, one, how I lived as a man, as a Christian, and again, this is just my perspective, but two, how good of a husband I was and how good of a father I was.
Yeah.
Because and it's hilarious to me to watch retirements, right? Because we work 25, 30 years to retirement, and you get the gold watch or whatever, you get the retirement present, and like a week later, no one remembers.
Yeah.
They might talk about you occasionally, but what is going to last is what you put into your family, to your wife, to your kids, the people you mentored.
Yeah. Your legacy.
Your legacy, man, and that's the name of our church is legacy. And my deep concern for men right now is are we leaving a legacy right now? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what guys are struggling with. I think that I agree with you when I say that there's no wrong questions, but I think what men are struggling right now with is finding that standard. What's the standard? Mm-hmm. What am I aiming for? And I think that's the conversation that I'm excited to have with you. Excited to have with guests we bring on.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
But I love what you talked about in terms of a bunch of little boys out there trying to play men, and unfortunately I think that's true a lot. Mm-hmm. And you talked about the tabloid racks. I think it's hilarious, like, because it's all fake, Mm-hmm. The hyper masculine guy, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger type over here, looks super masculine, but I don't think we want to leave the legacy that, all respect to Arnold, that he's left, with his family and his feelings later in life. But I don't think any man wants to be super weak either. Mm-hmm. And it's about finding that balance.
Yeah, and it's that's the thing, is there's no recipe, there's no one size fits all. It's every single person is on their own chapter in their own book.
Yeah.
They're always going to be going through their own, because everybody's experiences are different.
Sure.
You're gonna have, you look at any person, it's like no two snowflakes are the same. It's like
don't bring up snowflakes, bro. We can't talk about that yet.
That's dangerous. But you never have people that are the same. Nobody's gonna have the same exact. Even I have twin sisters, and they're polar opposites.
Right.
Or no, I should say, but they're very different. Mm-hmm. And the way they think, what they do, how they, it's just like, so. It's just each person is on their own journey, and they have to. That's why I think it comes down to this conversation. It's like, because you're gonna get to a different destination at a different time. Mm-hmm. You're never gonna be going through everything together perfectly in sync. Everybody's going to be on different, just different areas of their life, and you'll hear so many different stories. Especially so one of my best friends, Taylor, he's in Reading, and he leads a men's group, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And man, every time you hear somebody speak there, it's completely different.
Yeah.
And even the same people, maybe not so much there because I haven't been there enough to see, but I remember other speakers from other like men's groups and stuff like that I've been a part of, that even those guys are so different every time because they're just in different seasons every time they speak, that you're like, even,
Right.
they're still the same person, but you can see like what they're learning in a complete different way.
Totally.
And that's the kind of man I want to be, is somebody that's constantly learning, somebody that's
Yes.
constantly, intentional on pushing, and I don't care what direction it is, but as long as you're pushing in a direction,
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing, is stepping out and doing that. And that's the biggest struggle, is in that, doing that every day in, day out, deciding you're going to wake up, say, I am going to live intentionally right now, today.
Well, I love what you said about being intentional, because I think that if there is one thing that men struggle with more than anything else, it's probably being intentional.
Yeah.
Like by nature,
It's so easy to be passive.
oh my gosh,
numbed off.
it is so easy.
Mhm.
I mean, because I think naturally, the hardest thing for men to do is just get out of bed. I mean, if we're honest, or just, it's easy to be comfortable in one area.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do this one thing, I'm going to be good at this one thing, and I'm never going to stretch myself in these other areas of my life that I really need to be stretched in.
Yeah.
And I think that's where guys struggle the most, and that's being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said, because, I mean, there is no one. I would think of it this way: there's no one look. There's no one. It's easy to look at a guy, the super jacked, the stereotypical like bro, and that's what, when I think society thinks of the super masculine guy, that's the standard to look at.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that's looks like a power lifter. He's big, he's strong, he's good looking, he's loud, and I mean, that's not necessarily the model.
No.
I think it's, are you being intentional? Are you living for a legacy beyond you?
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're shooting for something like that,
Yeah.
I think we're doing better.
Yeah.
And I think there was an old saying. So in the Bible, they talk about this a bunch of times, and they're kind of using old school language. And so multiple times in the Bible, God will tell a man, prepare yourself as a man, or he'll say, in some translations, he'll say, play the man. And that language sounds funny to us now, because play is like play.
Yeah.
Play at something. But back then what it meant was, be the man. Be a man.
Yeah.
And it was calling men to be something. And I firmly believe that in 2019, in the Legacy Christian Church and at large, God is calling men to not just play men like you were talking about, but actually be men.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were talking about, we battled probably for, I don't know, 2-3 months on trying to figure out a name for this podcast.
I think you battled. I didn't really think
I
about
battled
it.
a lot, man, because I was like, what are we going to call this, man?
I was like, whatever, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I battled, and Aaron just listened to me.
Yeah.
Which was enough. But, I think the slogan I'd like to give the guys out there is don't just play at being the man, but be the man. You can't just play the man. You got to be the man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I'd encourage guys to do is when you wake up, try to be intentional. For me, what it looks like for me is my day does not start well until I've spent some time with God, and then I try to follow routine most days, even when it is awful and I don't feel like doing it. And again, I agree with Aaron. This looks different for everyone else. For Aaron and I, fitness is a big part of our lives just because of the careers we've had, and the lifestyles we've chosen to lead. But that doesn't mean it has to look that way for you. I'd encourage you guys to just form some kind of discipline. It's getting up. I'd encourage you guys to get up early if you can. For me, that just helps. Always to get.
There's a TED Talks on that too, actually.
Yeah. We should literally have a podcast that just talks about daily routines and the importance of routine.
Yeah.
And discipline. I get up, I spend some time with God. That's what jumpstarts my day usually, and then I have a set number of things I'm trying to check off during the day.
Yeah.
And I'm a big list maker.
Yeah.
So lists are huge for me, but it's living intentionally. And my encouragement to you guys today would be to live to leave a legacy. That'd be my big encouragement today. Is a man, you should be living to leave a legacy. Yeah. If you're not thinking beyond yourself, then you're not living.
I like what do you know Josh Bridges?
Love Josh Bridges.
Yeah.
You know my brother.
Yeah.
My brother is like the biggest Josh Bridges fan
Bridges,
ever.
like a big CrossFitter, but ex-Navy SEAL. Super good dude, though. At least from what I see on YouTube. I don't really know him personally, but
No, you guys aren't tight.
no, we're buddies. We hang out. But he always says like pay the man,
Yeah.
which is completely separate. But I like that. He's like his whole thing is like you wake up in a deficit.
Yeah.
And you're like you got to pay the man like always. So it's pretty much saying you need to wake up, and sometime in that day you need to do something challenging that you don't want to do. That's some sort of deal with something, whether it's friggin' take an ice bath, which is what I like to do,
The ice
or
baths
if
are
it's do a
miserable.
really hard workout,
Yep.
or work on something that you just really don't want to do, but you got to just force yourself to do it.
Yeah.
Just because that is, I don't know, it's kind of a cool mindset. Like always, not that you should live with this mindset, you're always in deficit, but in that aspect, it's like a good way to think of it. It's like, oh, I wake up and I got to do something hard today.
We don't
Do something difficult.
When you don't grow from comfort, like no one ever grows from a place of comfort.
Exactly.
It just doesn't happen.
Keeps you out of that comfort zone.
You can't. Yeah, never get comfortable. There's a great writer. He's kind of wind down that wrote this quote, and I think it is perfect for where we want to go with this podcast. And there's 2 great days in a man's life: the day he is born and the day he finds out why. And I think the why is what so many guys are trying to answer out there. And I think you kind of hit it on the head. You got to get up thinking, I'm waking up at a deficit. What am I going to do today to leave a legacy? What am I going to do to live beyond myself? And I think that's what inspires me. That's what inspires guys. And again, our experiences are going to be different than yours. But whatever it is that cultivates in you a routine to live beyond yourself, that's what we want to talk about. And so in this podcast, don't just, to piggyback off the language we were talking about earlier, don't just wake up and play the man, but play the man, be the man. And on the days that you need to, we'll borrow from Josh Bridges, pay the man. So,
Nice.
You got anything else?
I think that's it.
Awesome.
It's a good opener.
I think it's pretty good. So we'll be trying to do these regularly, and hopefully have guests and fresh
And
perspectives.
hopefully it has some sort of way for people to communicate with us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you have questions.
Yeah, because it's about community.
We'll open up questions, talk about them.
Definitely. And we'll get some cooler
Yeah.
some cooler
A little
background.
bland right now.
This is number 1.
Number 1's always the most awkward.
Yeah,
It's like an interrogation right now with the lights on my face.
like a first date. I'm just playing.
First dates. Dude, first dates can be awkward. Not always, though.
Awesome.